In today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement, we're breaking down the pension and the 401k. We're talking about how to maximize these two great opportunities you have for saving for your retirement. So whether you are still working or maybe you just retired, this is going to be a great conversation to have if you're wondering, what should I do with my 401k in those moments? And knowing you have a pension is going to make things different. And we talk about the 2% club on this channel all the time, and that's those with a pension, less than 20% of people, and those with $1 million or more saved, which is less than 10% of people. You combine those, 2% of the population is in that unique category. And so if that's you, understand what you're going to do with your pension 401k may be different than your friend down the street or your neighbor who's maybe telling you what they're doing with their 401k because they may not have a pension. And as I always say, we typically recommend different things to people with a pension than people without a pension. And we hear numerous amount of people who come to us from working with advisors who basically said they don't understand my situation. They're telling me that I need to be more conservative with my investments and I have a pension that covers most of my income needs and I want to be more aggressive and I want to grow this over time. Or they don't understand how to select a survivorship option when I retire. They don't understand how to replace a survivorship option or run the numbers to see if I even need it. They don't know to decide if the lump sum makes sense or not. There's a lot of differences with this. They may be telling you to do tax-deferred investments versus Roth, right? Well, when you have a higher income in retirement, that may not be the case. And so we're going to break down 4 things that you need to be aware of. We're going to be very detailed in each of these 4 things to make sure you have what I believe is the 4 most important things as you plan your retirement to make sure you're maximizing your pension and 401k.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
So most of the clients that we work with are in their 50s and 60s with that pension million plus saved. And so this is something we have frequent conversations of. And so one of the first things we always talk about there is what are we going to do with the contributions to our 401k? And so the first thing is we may have more opportunities to save more into the 401k at this point in our life. Maybe the kids are out of the house. We've got a little more retirement savings. Our income is going to be higher than it's ever been before, typically due to all the cost of living adjustments and promotions over the years. And so now could be the time to start to max fund those 401ks. And depending on the age, you're going to be able to have different levels of contribution. So just understand what that could be for your specific age. But you could really put some diligent amount into your 401k and make this be a larger amount over time, especially to catch up at this point in your life. And now we always recommend people to take the match with their 401k. So make sure you're doing that bare minimum, even if you don't have the money to fund this. That may be a certain thing you definitely want to do to get that 100% free money in some cases. You're not going to find a better rate of return typically with that money for right now. And so we always typically recommend that, but see if you can stuff some more in there to better your situation. So the second thing with those contributions is deciding where do you want those to go? Do you want them to go to traditional or do you want them to go to Roth? Now, this is general information, but for many of our clients, we look to utilize the Roth for them at this point, mainly because they have all their money already in tax deferred, and we're looking to diversify and have not all of our eggs in one basket with everything in tax deferred investments. And so this is a way we can start to have more of a balance and start to contribute to the Roth. Now, that doesn't make sense for everyone. Maybe you have an extreme income now, you haven't saved as much, you don't have a pension, which probably doesn't apply to many people watching this video, but just so you have perspective, in that case, they may want to fund more towards their 401k. If you have $500,000 and no pension, I'm probably recommending you to do tax deferred while you're still working. Especially, let's say you retire at 60 years old, you're not going to start Social Security yet. You can Roth convert in the 10-12% bracket, be able to get a significant amount converted, maybe the majority of the Roth at very low tax rates, and not have to worry about high taxes in the future because all of your withdrawals are from Roth or from IRAs that will be within the standard deduction, which just got raised this year. Or you don't have to worry about the pension putting you in higher brackets, which probably leads to your Social Security being tax-free as well. And so those are all considerations that we want to think about, and knowing your situation is more unique. So if you already have been diligent in saving in the Roth, which we don't see often, well, maybe that gives you a little more flexibility at this point and something to consider there. But for most of our clients at this point, we're not only looking at Roth contributions into the Roth 401k, we're looking at contributions into potentially the Roth IRA as well. Now, you have to worry about if you make too much money, so you may have to to do something called a backdoor Roth IRA. So make sure you write that down, look that up of how to do that. There's some rules that are associated with that you need to be aware of, such as if you have IRAs already, or if you have simple IRAs or other type of investments that can cause what we call cream in the coffee. So just make sure you research that and know what's going on there, or put in the comments below if you have questions, or if you have any other questions on this video, if you're maximizing your 401k, let us know. We're going to try to give you as much general help as we can there. And so those may be some more opportunities to stuff even more money away, tax-free, get those benefits moving forward. Now, the other consideration to think of, again, I keep talking about being in a higher income bracket in the future. Again, pension, Social Security, and then your investment withdrawals on top of that may always kick you out of that 12% bracket that you hear people talk about, which ultimately is going to force you into the 22% or even 24% bracket throughout retirement. And so if I'm someone in your shoes that has that type of future outlook, I'm looking to maximize most likely that 24% bracket to make sure that I can take advantage of what I consider probably going to be the lowest tax brackets we're going to see in our lifetime. Now, I didn't expect them to get lower from a few years ago, and now they are, so tax rates could go lower, as we all know. But most people just suggest that's not going to be really realistic, even though this is a permanent tax break with the OBBB, the One Big Beautiful Bill, but we all know that that will likely sunset at some point in the future, not due to it sunsetting, but due to legislative change of people, wanting changes to that to maybe increase taxes down the road. And so those are all things that we have to be considerate of. But if I'm in the 24% bracket, I have up to about $425,000 of income that I can make, or I can Roth convert, where I move money from my tax deferred to my tax free without having to worry about paying more than that 24% federal tax bracket. Now, you want to be aware of what your age is. If maybe you're 63, maybe you're planning to get on Medicare at 65, well, your Part B premium could be more by doing a big conversion at 63. Now, you can file an exemption for 1 year that we have a lot of success with many of our clients, depending on their situation, but you do have to be aware of your circumstance of how that's going to play a part. And many people call that IRMA or Part B, and Part D also has an added cost as your income increases. So you just want to make sure you're planning ahead for something like that, knowing it is a 2-year look back. And so between a Roth contribution, your 401k, Roth IRA contribution, and potentially looking at Roth conversions could make a lot of sense. Now, understand a lot of 401ks may not have the opportunity to do what's called an internal Roth conversion, but if you have outside IRAs, then that could be something that you look to do with those. Now, if you're under age 59 and a half, you have to be aware of where you're going to get the cash to pay the taxes on that. But maybe have a brokerage account, or maybe have excessive amount in your savings that you could pay the taxes to not have to worry about that 10% penalty, where it may not make sense to convert something like that. And again, a lot of this conversation comes down to what is your current tax situation? Do you have most of it in tax deferred, little in tax free, or do you have mostly balanced right now? That's all going to play a part along with your future income. Now, the third part that I want to play off of what we just talked about is what's called an in-service withdrawal. So this is for those who are 59 and a half or older. And so if you're maybe 60 years old and you're still working and plan to maybe work till 65, let's say, well, you can move a portion or even all of your 401k currently to an IRA while still being able to contribute to your 401k, get the company match, max out your benefits, and continue to grow your balance. It would be at a zero balance if you moved at all, but it'll continue to grow over time until you retire, until you decide to do that in-service withdrawal. Again, this is something that we do with the majority of our clients at that point. And the main reason why is to have more investment options in an IRA than you may have in your 401k, or maybe in your TSP or 403b or retirement account that you have there. And so as we know, with 401ks, the options can be limited. I mean, the TSP has 5 options. The 401k typically has anywhere from 10 to 20 options in it. And you may have even options in there, or maybe are higher costs than what you could get on the marketplace in an IRA. So even if you are just DIYing your retirement, we typically suggest, hey, go open up a Vanguard IRA or a Fidelity or a Charles Schwab IRA, where you can just move that over and have a plethora of more options, and likely your costs will be the same as your 401k or even less in some situations, especially if your plan maybe only has mutual funds. And so if that's the case, now you can go to an index fund, save some money there. The administrative costs at those types of places are very low, and so that could lead to you having a better opportunity with more investment options. And also understand, some of your 401ks, maybe if you want to look at more of a stable value option, they may not provide you a large rate of return on those. It may be under the market value, and so you could go out on the marketplace, look at all the different options out there, And if you're looking for a supplement to or an alternative to that stable value, you may be able to find it at a higher rate just by knowing you've got more opportunities and you're not as captive in your 401k. So we see that a lot of success with clients we work with of helping them even get better opportunities and having more opportunities to choose from. And the other consideration of why people do that in-service withdrawal is that when it comes to that tax planning, we talked about this earlier, that some 401ks, many 401ks do not allow what's called an in-plan Roth conversion. And so if you want to do a Roth conversion while you're still working and all your money's in your 401k, you may not be able to. The only opportunity to get money in a Roth may be a Roth contribution or a Roth IRA from your savings or from your income. This is a scenario where you can move it to an IRA where now you can do a Roth conversion. And what also is great about this is you can withhold the taxes when doing the Roth conversion from your IRA without paying taxes. Now, you have to pay your taxes. Sorry, we either put a disclosure there or we have to remove that. So hopefully the editor here will take it out there, or maybe we'll have some fun and see my blooper and know that I'm not perfect. So obviously you have to pay your taxes, but there's no penalty to pay that tax out of your IRA like there would have been if you were 58 and did that due to the 10% penalty for taking early withdrawals from your 401k or from your IRA. Now, we typically recommend if you have that money on the side, discussed earlier, that may be a more efficient way to do it. So you could get more to the Roth, but that's all considerations for you to think about when making that decision. And also the other benefit there is now you can look to get professional help. You can have a professional team manage that investments for you. They can help you with those Roth conversion decisions. They can help you with other parts of your financial planning fee. And as most financial advisors work, they take that fee out of your investments, so you don't have to necessarily write them a check. It's going to come out of their investments. Most advisors are going to take that money out, and it's going to be tax deductible if it comes out of your IRA as an example. So you're not going to have to pay taxes on that withdrawal. So if you were to take out $1,000 and then pay the fee, well, you'd have to pay tax on that withdrawal, and then the advisor would get their pay. But if you have the advisor just take the fee right out of the IRA, then it's technically not going to be a taxable event or withdrawal or a penalty in that case if you're under 59.5. So again, just another strategy and understanding of how that works. For many of you in higher tax brackets, that could be 25, 35% savings depending on state, based on your federal tax rate combined of savings there on that fee that you're ultimately paying versus if you were just to take it out. Now, the fourth and final point that I want to mention to maximize your pension and 401k is to make sure you're being more aggressive or maybe conservative with your 401k. And so what we always tell people is now that you have a pension, you could take as much risk as you want or as little risk as you want in your investments in many cases. And the reason why, if you have that guaranteed income stream from the pension moving forward, and you've got maybe your Social Security on top of that, you may not need your investments. And so in that case, let's grow them to the moon. Let's go get as much growth as possible so we can leave more money behind so that we can have more to spend later on, whatever it may be. Many of our clients, they still want to balance, maybe the stereotypical 60-40. They could probably definitely take more risk than that because their pension's considered that 40% protected. So it's just going to depend on your risk tolerance. Some of our clients want to be under the 60-40 and more overweighted to protection. Other clients say, hey, let's take more risk. And so the biggest point I'm trying to get across is understand that with your pension, you could do either one, right? If you take less risk, you're not going to likely get as much return, but you can sacrifice that. You can sacrifice that for more peace of mind and more liquidity from your investments and, less concern of them going up and down. Or you could take more risk, and knowing that you're not going to need it if the market's down, you could just continue to let it go and ride out as time goes along. So typically what we recommend though, regardless, if you plan to ever take out income, consistently, or maybe just even lump sums, maybe you look to have a portion of it protected, even if it's as small as 10% or even 20%, just to make sure that you don't have to worry about if the market's down, going without doing what you plan to, or having to take out or withdraw when the market's down and facing that double loss there. So there's plenty of considerations with that. So obviously, like I mentioned in the beginning, you're in a unique situation with that pension, with that 401k. And so you just want to make sure you're making the right decisions, knowing that you're going to be in a high income situation from that pension, from the high net worth and the savings there. And also knowing that you have more options, I would say, than most people out there. So like I said earlier, if you're looking for this type of planning help and you found this video helpful, feel free to schedule a time with our team. We always offer that to people who watch our channel here. You're the type of people we work with. We don't want to go out on the street and try to find people to work with when they don't necessarily match our 2% crowd here. Knowing we've got so many people reaching out from this channel, we love the opportunity to provide further guidance outside of even these videos to make sure that you're truly walking the right path. And so you can schedule that time with us. And if we don't feel like we could be a good fit to serve you. Due to our high demand, we'll at least make sure you're pointed in the right direction, whether that's with someone else, or make sure you've got the resources to do it on your own. So if you are interested and you are serious about working with us, though, you can fill out the questionnaire in the description below or on our website to schedule a call with our team. And you can read our frequently asked questions to learn more about us and how we serve clients there as well. And so that's all I've got in today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement. And before I hop off, I do want to ask you, leave comments. What do you think of the new staging here? What do you think of the Joe Knows Retirement logo up here? If you like what you see, go ahead and comment in the section here. Let the team know what you liked about this setup. What can I do to spruce it up, right? We always have some fun with viewers here, and we want to know what we can do to be the best outcome for you. And so I know obviously the setup is going to be very aesthetic and very engaging for you. So whatever we can do to add more value. So we'll have some fun with that. Enjoy the rest of your day.